As Rachel said, I am Laurie Parfitt. I am with LKP Impact Consulting. I have a 15-year career in CPG, and then I became the Vice President of Customer Engagement and Marketing for Mission Dispensaries, which is a division of Forefront. And then following that, I started my own consulting firm, and I'm also the Fractional Chief Experience Officer for Union Cannabis Group, a concentrate company. So a lot of Lauries in the industry, so Laurie Parfitt. All right, so today we're going to talk about three things mainly. So we're going to talk about the category, so the edibles and drinkables category. So I'm going to cover a little bit about both today because I think they really pretty much go together. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the consumer, and then I'm going to show you some examples of brands that I think are doing it right and why I think they're doing it right. So with that, what is happening in the category? So beverage sales have grown exponentially and are up 68% in 2021, and the format is expected to reach 2.8 billion by 2025. So this is one of the fastest growing segments in all of cannabis, is drinkables. And so we're just starting to see it pop up, but it has massive potential going forward. And so I always like to ground everybody in kind of the, what's been going on with COVID and all of that. COVID's been great for cannabis, to be honest. So people really stocked up and started experimenting with different types of formats. And what's great for both edibles and beverages is that consumers are starting to walk away a little bit more from inhalables. So COVID affected the lungs, so people were looking for options that they didn't have to inhale. And one of the most interesting things I heard someone say recently is you don't have to teach someone how to eat, but you do have to teach somebody how to inhale. And so that's why we're seeing edibles and beverages really take hold. And we're going to see them continue to grow as more technology comes out and as consumers get more comfortable with the format. So this is my 2x2, and I do this for pretty much every type of analytical program I put together. So along the x-axis you have growth, and along the y you have investment, and it goes into 4 different buckets. So you have growth drivers, rising stars, value creators, and other. So a growth driver is sort of your must win. So it's something that you have to be successful, but it's pretty mature in its life cycle, and you're not going to see tremendous growth, but it still continues to grow, and you have to invest in it pretty heavily. Then you have rising stars, where a lot of the cannabis formats are sitting right now, which is they're very nascent, they're just starting to emerge, and there's a tremendous amount of runway for growth. A value creator is what I would call your steady Eddie. They're really your profit plays, and so that's where you would put things that you just intend to kind of let ride. And then the other, which is low growth, low investment, is where you don't want to have a product at all. And so what I see here is Drinkables is really that martini glass on the upper right-hand side. That's really one of the biggest rising stars that we see right now. And we also see edibles in that box as well. Not as far along, not as nascent, I would say, as drinkables are, but there's still a lot of runway for growth with edibles. I mean, there's new formats coming out all the time, new technology. We're seeing them grow. And so the reason for this is consumers are starting to gain more knowledge on cannabis and are more open to using it. What I thought was really interesting here is that 73% of consumers say that they're knowledgeable about cannabis. Not sure I believe that, but that's what they're saying. And 64% of consumers in mature markets either use or are willing to consider using cannabis. And 28% are saying they don't use it, but they would consider trying it. That's a pretty high number. So we're starting to see cannabis become much more socialized across, different industries. And so we're seeing more demographics come in, we're seeing more people willing to try, and that's creating tremendous growth in the category. And flower is still a primary format. So when we look at primary formats in 2021, flower is 28%. Edibles are pretty close though. I mean, 24%, that's a big jump for them. You're really starting to see edibles catch up to flower. Flower is always going to be the true mainstay of the category. It's where it all started. It's all about the plant. But you're really starting to see edibles take hold. We're starting to see pre-rolls jump up, vapes a little bit more, and drinkables are still pretty small. But I would venture to say that in the next year, you're going to see drinkables up where pre-roll joints are right now. And they have mass appeal. So the top 3 product categories that have mass appeal are edibles, topicals, and drinkables. And the reason for that is they're very accessible and approachable for most consumers. So everybody knows how to eat a gummy, everybody knows how to drink a beverage, and everybody understands how to use, a skin cream. And so for consumers who are just starting out in the category and they kind of want to dip their toe, those 3 categories are really where they start first. They're less likely to start with flower and start smoking. Tinctures are starting to pop up a little bit more, but it's still something that they're not as familiar with. But drinkables and edibles are still a supporting act. So what these charts really tell us is that a small portion of consumers use edibles and drinkables as a primary consumption method. Flower is still the primary consumption method, and edibles and drinkables are really secondary consumption methods, but pretty strong secondary consumption methods. And what I also thought was really interesting is that women are more likely to use edibles and men are more likely to use drinkables as their primary consumption method, which I thought was pretty surprising. I would have thought it was the opposite, but men seem to be very much on board with drinkables. We tend to think of them as a female category, but what I would say is that it's really a men's category as well. A lot of them, by a pretty big number, are utilizing drinkables as a primary consumption method. And beverages are a great add-on product. So this is all about attachment rate. This is from Headset. And beverages are more likely to be purchased alongside an edible flower or pre-roll than alone. So this is what's great about this is you know that it's going to increase your basket size in a dispensary when drinkables are available. So consumers come in, they're not coming in for drinkables, they're not coming in for products like that, but they're coming in for vape pens, they're coming in for flower, they're coming in for other products, and they're purchasing this as sort of an impulse purchase and sort of that add-on to really increase the basket size for consumers. So, who's buying the product? So, edibles and drinkables are top formats that consumers are still interested in trying. So, like I said earlier, edibles, topicals, drinkables are the top 3. And so consumers are really interested in trying those formats as their entry place into the category. And consumers are taking trends from traditional industries and applying them to cannabis. Functional ingredients are becoming a thing. So in CPG, for the past 5 years, we've seen products and categories start including functional benefits. What that means is products attributes that contribute to immunity, brain function, eye function. Consumers are looking at looking at cannabis as medicine, looking at food as medicine. And so having functional ingredients in your products is becoming a big trend. And the truth is that cannabis is really a health and wellness product. And so by having these attributes in your product, it's going to make it that much more appealing to the general consumer. So 42% said they like foods and drinks to contribute to both their mental and physical health. And so brands that really take that into account are going to win going forward. And consumers cite different reasons for using edibles versus drinkables, which I also thought was kind of interesting. So with edibles, it's all about the experience. So it's the experience of eating the gummy, eating the product. Then secondly, they want to enjoy the taste, and they feel that edible cannabis is really fun. For drinkables, it's really all about innovative flavors that will drive sales of drinkables. So enjoying the taste is the #1 by far, and trying innovative beverages and using beverages that offer variety are the top 3, where drinkable cannabis being fun is really a little bit further down the list. So consumers really are looking at these for very different purposes. So this was the most eye-opening thing to me. Consumers state that the #1 reason that they don't try edibles and drinkables is they don't know about them. And this is from a recent report. So brands really need to put together robust marketing campaigns to raise brand awareness. I mean, it's unbelievable that consumers really, they're not as familiar with the category as they would like to believe, or we would like to believe. So edibles really demand education. 25% said it's never occurred to them to try it. Secondly, they believe that they're too difficult to dose. And so, which is, I think, another misnomer as well, because most edibles, you can actually understand what the dosage is when you're picking it up. And then they take too long to take effect, they're too expensive, all of those things, are driving, a lack of sales in edibles. And then for drinkables really need to think about sparking ideas. So they've never occurred to consumers to use them, which is a little bit more believable because drinkables is really a very nascent product category. They prefer alcoholic beverages. Drinkable cannabis is not sold in my area, or they're too difficult to dose. And with drinkables, I think that's going to be a key thing for consumers, for companies to think about going forward, is how do you ensure that consumers don't overconsume? And so that's going to be all about packaging, dosage, making sure you have the right attributes within your drinkable product to ensure consumers feel comfortable utilizing it, and that they're utilizing it the right way so they have that positive experience every single time. And then, strain type's not particularly important to consumers, so THC content is really paramount. As we all know in the industry, sativa, indica hybrid, they're really, in edibles and drinkables, it's really all hybrid for the most part. And so having just THC is really the big driver for this category. And then there are certain form factors that are preferred by consumers. And so on the edible side, it's nothing, earth-shattering. Gummies, brownies, cookies, chocolate candies, all the top consumption methods. On the drinkable side, I thought it was really interesting. Tea was the #1, soft drinks was #2. A product you can add to your own beverages is #3. And so that would be like your little Mio that you see in the CPG world. How do you add something to your beverage that you can kind of control and that's more portable for you? And then coffee, water, etc. But that's really where consumers are wanting brands to focus, is tea, soft drinks, and additives to beverage. And so the actual sales of drinkables tell a really unique story. So carbonated beverages in the cannabis space are really the top category. And then secondly, you've really got drops, mixes, and elixirs. And so that's really where the category is going. They want healthy options, low calorie, no sugar added, carbonated beverage. And then they also want products that they can take with them and add to drinks whenever they feel comfortable. All right, I think I've probably ripped through this really fast, but we're going to talk about some best-in-class brands, or at least ones that I think are best-in-class. I'm pretty excited to share them with you. So first and foremost, what can brands do to really set themselves apart? So I believe in occasion-based marketing. So when it comes to edibles and drinkables, as we said earlier, consumers a lot of times don't even know they exist. But if you really think about connecting the product to when they should be consuming it, they might be more engaged in the category. So you drink this when you do X. This is for this time. When you link to occasion, consumers have a better understanding of when they should be partaking in the product. Create connection. So appeal to consumers need to connect with your brands on a more spiritual level. And that's really the key in cannabis, is that consumers are looking for brands that they can identify with, that they feel comfortable with, that they can go back to again and again and have a consistent experience. This is such a nascent category and consumers still have some fears about, utilizing products and having bad experiences, that they tend to go back to their tried and true over and over again. And then functional benefits. Focus on unique ingredients and functional benefits that add value to a consumer's routine. Become the health and wellness product. All right, so moving on to some of these best-in-class brands. All right, so one of my first brands that I want to talk about today is Happy. It is one of my favorite brands, and I think they do an amazing job at occasion-based marketing. So what if at your next dinner party you could pour cannabis instead of a glass of wine? At your favorite concert you could order cannabis instead of beer, or at your friend's birthday celebration you could toast with cannabis instead of a glass of champagne, and then wake up hangover-free. What they've done here in all of those statements is they've told you when to use it. So Happy is all about the happy hour. And so now you know when you should be utilizing Happy, because they've actually connected it to experiences that consumers are used to having every single day. And I love how they do it, and I love how they engage consumers and really focus on that happy hour. And then there's the Happy difference. They're all natural and vegan. They have the unique emulsion technology. They're THC only. And right now they are the first beverage in Michigan, which is a very highly regulated market. So they're doing exceptionally well. They've got all the keys on their packaging so that you know exactly what you're getting from them. Only 15 to 25 calories. It's a lot less than a glass of wine. Then you've got 1906 drops. And what I like is they kind of combine occasion and function. So here you've got things like Go, Genius, Bliss, Love. So, Go is all about energy. Genius is about brain function. Midnight's about sleep. Love is about sex. Like, all of those are occasions, and they're also need states that consumers are looking to solve on a regular basis. And 1906 Drops has really come out. They're swallowable pills, and they've really connected it to what do you need today. And what you need today might not be what you need tomorrow, but they have a solution for everything that you could possibly want. And so I like how they combine occasion and function. Then we've got Choi Beverages. They are a beverage company out of Sonoma County, California. And this is their CBD line, but they also have a THC line that they've put together. And so they're all about, being consumer-centered. It's about inclusion, togetherness, connection. It's an invitation in. Come join us. Let's have this product together. Let's create a unique, engaging experience for everybody. And so I love their packaging. I think it's really engaging and beautiful. And I like how they've connected inclusion with a little bit of need state with it as well. And so this is kind of their marketing campaign, Conceive, Believe, Do. And so I like how they've been able to combine both of those areas. All right, now we got Little Saints. So Little Saints, another Michigan brand. And so they focus on plant magic, which I like. It's a very whimsical way of really getting into the product category and engaging people on more of a functional level. So this is all about functional benefits. So Little Saints has that plant magic stack, and they have that nano fast-acting cannabis, uplifting botanical terpenes, and that reishi mushroom extract. And so they have microdose edibles, they have CBD mocktails, and I know they have a formulation for a THC product coming out. And so they focus all on those functional benefits. And you can see here, functional benefits are really a consumer expectation. So things like memory support, immunity, energy, all really important in this space, especially immunity right now. As we've seen in the past couple of years, we've had major health issues across the globe. Immunity, consumers are looking for products that enhance their immunity, build up their immunity, and so that's a really great way to start getting consumers to engage in your product and your brand. And what I love about Little Saints is all of their products contain that reishi mushroom, and it's believed to boost memory and energy, and it's kind of taking from both the botanical side and the plant-based side as well as the cannabis side and bringing it together. And then this is a different form factor that I really love. And so Splash is like that little Mio beverage. So it's that little additive that you put into all of your beverages. So what I like about it is you can put it in your bag and you can take it anywhere you want and you can add it in. Like, you can't take a bottle of something somewhere, but you can take this product and you can add it to your beverage and then use as much as you want, as little as you want. And they make sure that they have single serving packages so you don't overconsume. But this is really great new technology that I think is going to be one of the big up and coming trends that we see in this industry. So, in conclusion, wow, I went really fast. So, top considerations for cannabis edibles and drinkables brands: create product and brand awareness. Consumers don't know enough about these products. They think they do, but they don't. And in a lot of cases, they're not even sure that they exist. Especially in markets that are just turning, it's really important to provide education and marketing platforms so that consumers are aware of the product. They're aware of the consumption method. Educate. Tell consumers when they should use drinkables and edibles. Link to occasions, need states. That way consumers really understand when they should be using it, why they should be using it, and how they should be using it. And then enhance. Add functional benefits that consumers are interested in. Make it a health and wellness product. Focus on health and wellness, and consumers will join you. So with that, that's all my prepared remarks for today, and I will open the floor up for questions. Anybody? I think you can just speak up if you have a question. Nobody?
Don't be shy.
Okay.
How much education do you recommend providing to your customer leading up to the launch of your new product?
I would say as much as you possibly can. So the question was, how much education should you be providing for your customers leading up to the launch of a product or brand? And I would say as much as you possibly can. You really have to start your marketing campaign before the product's even on the market. Otherwise, consumers won't be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And so the key to this industry in general is really all about education. How can you teach people what they need to know and why they need to know it? There's not enough information out there right now, so as you're thinking about launching a new brand or a new product, it's really important that you provide all of that marketing and education up front. So things like infographics, displays with information, social media, out of home, any type of marketing that you can do that really brings the educational component in with it will be incredibly impactful. Thank you.
Do I have to stand up too? Oh, okay, good. You had talked about the preference for women preferring edibles and men trending towards beverages. And I wonder if you think the trend for men towards beverages and women, perhaps you could deduce it's away from beverages, has to do with many of the early beverages were very much branded towards men, high in sugar, high in calories, high dose, beer or hop water. And I wonder what factor do you think that plays into those preferences?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think it could be a big portion of it, that Drinkables really engaged men first, and so they got more on that bandwagon. But I think the other side of it is that women look for really discreet consumption methods, and even though Drinkables is discreet, it still is a little bit more in your face than, say, just popping a gummy in your mouth. And so I'm thinking that women are also not as comfortable with that consumption method yet. So I'd say it's a combination of the two. Anybody else?
Hi. So completely agree with you that education is the route to making this a more accessible industry, and love the occasion-based piece. I'm curious if you've seen any good examples of linking the benefit and the occasion directly to like a strain or a cannabinoid, or, you know, are people making those connections for the regular mainstream consumer yet?
That's a great question, and I would say I don't think so.
I don't either.
I don't think that consumers know enough about strains, about terpene profiles. They're just learning about indica sativa hybrid, which we know is kind of an antiquated way of viewing the category. And so trying to connect some of the, those cannabinoids with the occasion is kind of almost like the future. It's just, we're not there yet, and consumers aren't quite ready for that. So it's all going to be about baby stepping them into that next realm where they really understand, how cannabinoids work, what they need, why they should choose one versus the other, what terpene profiles mean, and why they would select different products. Oh, two more.
Hi, great presentation, first of all.
Thank you.
There seems to be a lot of common themes with a lot of the beverages that are coming out now. What do you think it would take to disrupt what we're currently seeing? Like, we're seeing, like, even just a lot of the brands you show, they have pastel colors. There's just, like, the colors, the sort of positioning of the brands. There seems to be a lot of sort of very common wellness themes. And do you think that we're at a point where there can be a successful disruptor, and what would it take?
I think you can always find a successful disruptor. I think that's a great question. I do think Drinkables is still extremely nascent. It's still, just up and coming. And so we haven't seen a lot of that because beverage companies are kind of doing what it takes to get there. Plus, I think one of the big issues that we see in Drinkables is that regulators are a little weary of them because their biggest fear is overconsumption of the product. And so the drinkable companies that we've seen come out have been very cognizant of that and really stayed within their guardrails. So I would say the next iteration will be when regulators become more comfortable, drinkables are proliferating the market more, and brands will feel more comfortable stepping outside that box and doing things that are more unique and interesting. I also think we're going to see disruption in terms of form factor. So those additives, that's becoming more of a disruptor. That's newer. We're going to see other types of drinkable formats that are going to be much more disruptive for the category.
Yes. Have you had any blowback from giving too much information to the consumer?
That's a great question. I have not, but I'm sure there are people who have. If you overload, if you provide too much medical information or information about cannabinoids and terpenes that isn't in a format that consumers can digest easily and that they feel like they can understand, they will either, one, feel stupid, they'll feel like you're making them feel like they don't know what they're doing, and they'll kind of start to walk away, or they will they'll just throw up their hands because they don't get it. And so what I would say is education is incredibly important, and I think that the more we do it, the better. But I think you bring up a great point that you need to make sure that your education meets consumers where they're at.
Yeah, no, that's a very good response to my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Oh, one more.
Hi. In terms of the, I guess, survey information and data that's available, what do you feel like is one burning question that like a lot of people in the beverage space haven't been able to answer yet? Like in terms of consumer preference, like what's something that's like a big black box right now?
I think how consumers are utilizing the product. So when you provide like a 4-pack or a 6-pack, like, is that for one consumer? Is that for multiple consumers? How many people are actually partaking in that product? Versus, traditionally when we look at like mainline CPG, you kind of understand, who's purchasing, who they're purchasing for. In this category, we don't necessarily know. And we don't know how that product is truly being consumed and whether it's being added to things, whether it's being utilized on its own. That information just hasn't popped up yet. I mean, we just started this category, so I think there's a lot to learn. And I think, as we see it evolve and we see more brands come up and we see more consumers partake and our research houses like Mintel, Brightfield, and Headset get more data, we'll be able to understand that a lot better.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you so much.